Mary, Queen of Scots, is someone I personally find very intriguing and interesting. Her life was tragic right from the very start, and she became a queen at just 6 days old and was then sent to France for both her safety and a marriage to the young dauphin Francis. She had 3 husbands in her life. The first she loved, and together they were the King and Queen of France. The second was a marriage of political necessity, but it brought her a son, her heir. And the third, well, that in my opinion was a marriage that she was forced into. 3 marriages, an abdication in favour of her son, a 20-year imprisonment, and finally an execution at the behest of her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I. Mary's life was full of sad stories and heartbreak, but also a lot of captivating and engaging things that many probably would not know. Now, the first point, as I have briefly mentioned, was the fact that Mary was a newborn baby, and at 6 days old, her father died. His death was recorded with no discernible cause, and it's recorded that at the age of 30, he just simply lost the will to live. So Mary, who had been born 6 days previously, and the only remaining legitimate child, instantly became queen. This made Mary, Queen of Scots, the youngest ever British monarch. The second point is one that confuses many. Many individuals who interact with some of my previous videos confuse Bloody Mary with Mary, Queen of Scots. They are related, but Bloody Mary is Mary I of England, and she is half-sister to Elizabeth I, and daughter of Catherine of Aragon and Henry VIII. Mary, Queen of Scots, is the daughter of James V of Scotland and Mary of Guise. Her grandmother was Margaret Tudor, sister to Henry VIII. Mary I was old enough to be Mary, Queen of Scots' mother, and interestingly, Mary I was even offered to James V to marry. Mary was very well educated, and she could speak fluent Latin, as well as French, Scottish, Lowland dialect, and Italian, Spanish, and Greek. When Mary was around 13 or 14, she was known by a historian called Signor de Brantome, and he said how she, in her own words, recited publicly in the presence of King Henry, the Queen, and the entire court, in a room of the Louvre, a speech in Latin composed by herself, sustaining against the common belief the thesis that it is becoming in women to be acquainted with literature and the liberal arts. Now, interestingly, and especially with the standards of her time, Mary was very tall. In an age when a woman was considered tall if she reached 5'4", Mary finally grew to almost 6 feet. You see, Mary is reported as being 5'11". Another interesting point is that it's only considered the norm nowadays to wear white to your wedding. Back in the 16th century, it was considered the colour of mourning. But Mary went against the standards. She loved the colour, and complimented her red hair and pale complexion, and a historical account of the day, where she marries Francis II, states, Queen Dauphin was dressed in a garment white as a lily, and so sumptuously and richly made that it would be impossible to describe it, and of which 2 young ladies carried a wonderfully long train. Now, historically, the family name was Stuart, spelt Stewart, and it had been the ruling family dating back to 1371 with Robert II. Mary was 8th in this line, with the name being passed down, but it was while she was in France, just before her marriage, that she changed the spelling to Stuart, Stuart. The sole purpose of this change? It was just to make it easier for the French to pronounce. Another point is something that gained Mary a lot of criticism after the death of her second husband, Lord Darnley. Mary loved to play golf and even had a holiday cottage in St Andrews, a place that is known to be the cathedral of golf, for it's thought to be the oldest golf course in the world. Mary loved the game, and even when she was in France, she learned a similar sport called pall mall, and it's also thought to have started the phrase caddy. This originates to the military cadets who would carry clubs for the royal players. Just days after Darnley's death, Mary was noted playing a round of golf, and for this she was accused of being cold-hearted. Our next point is the beauty regime that Mary followed, and she was complained about for it by the Earl of Shrewsbury when she was imprisoned in England for the pure cost of it. Mary bathed her face in white wine. It was thought to have had antiseptic qualities, and it's believed it even worked as a toner on Mary's very pale complexion. Now, any history buff will know that Mary was sent to her execution at the behest of Elizabeth I. But did you know that Elizabeth was actually godmother to James, Mary's son? Mary and Elizabeth were rivals for the English throne. Both had a claim. Both had royal blood. One was Protestant, the other Catholic. But even with the difficulties, the Protestant Elizabeth became godmother to the Catholic Mary's son. Elizabeth, however, sent a proxy, but still. James eventually solved the issue of succession by becoming both James VI of Scotland and I of England, and after Mary's abdication and Elizabeth's death. Speaking of Mary's execution, however, an interesting yet sad fact is that her execution was botched, and after her head had been taken from her shoulders, her small pet terrier was hiding under her skirt. You see, Mary had been convicted of conspiring to kill Queen Elizabeth I. After 20 years of confinement, both in Scotland for 2 years and then England for 18, at the age of 44, on February 8, 1587, Mary went to the executioner's scaffold, which had been erected within the great hall of Fotheringhay Castle. She wore a red dress under her gown, the colour of Catholic martyrdom, and after the executioner hacked at her neck at least 3 times, her head was then dropped after the executioner grabbed the wig upon her scalp. The whole thing was devastating, and those in attendance were in shock. The situation then took a turn into the more sorrow, as under the skirt of the now executed queen, her dog appeared, and upon detection it ran about wailing miserably, and lay down in the widening pool of blood between her severed head and shoulders. The last point may be known by many, but the journey may shock you. Today, Mary, Queen of Scots, is buried within the walls of Westminster Abbey, just across the hall from the queen who ordered her death, Elizabeth I. She was moved there by her son, who had her tomb built to be grander than that of Elizabeth's. Mary's wishes for after death were not adhered to. Mary was a Catholic, and she wished to be buried in France with her first husband, whom she loved very much. Instead, Elizabeth arranged a Protestant funeral service in Peterborough Cathedral, and here she lay for 25 years. So Mary, Queen of Scots, was a woman with a lot of story to her life, but most of it sad and heartbreaking. Was Mary ever truly happy, I find myself asking? I believe she was once, when she was in France. Thank you for watching, and for support, please subscribe to Her Remarkable History. Thank you.